So I have a few family members staying with me right now. So imagine everyone's surprise when I just like pull out my phone, look at Instagram, and I'm sitting here yelling about Arctic monkeys having something new. Hey neighbor, welcome back to Beyond ARTV. My name is John, and it's time to talk about the lead single from the upcoming 7th studio album by the English rock band Arctic Monkeys, one of my favorite bands of all time. Their 7th album is called The Car, and the lead single, the first track out, is called There'd Better Be A Mirrorball. This is a track that once again continues the 180 pivot that they did initially with Tranquility Base, Hotel, and Casino. While I definitely feel like I was one of the major defenders of that record, not saying that it was all golden, but I really did enjoy the vibe and the loungy atmosphere overall with the futuristic themes of being in space and the way that was juxtaposed with real life. This album feels like it might be coming back down to earth a little bit, and the sentimental tones are felt all over this track. It has a really pretty intro. It's a slow burn in some ways, and it almost reminded me a little bit of the band Wolf Alice with their track Last Man on Earth. It's an unconventional lead single, and I also see that with the Arctic Monkeys here. There's not many guitars on this track, and the bass from Nick O'Malley is very subtle, and when it does kick in a bit more, it's matching the kind of cinematic angle that I feel like the strings are providing. And yes, there's strings all over the end of this track. And I feel like it's really easy to pass off talking about strings and say, like, oh, they're so pretty, or they're beautiful, or elegant, whatever the adjective might be. But I feel like in some ways that is a cop out. And I was finding myself thinking aloud while listening. And I was saying, well, do I think the strings are actually bringing something to the track that wouldn't have been brought by a different instrument? Does it fit the mood? Or am I just saying that they're pretty for the sake of them being strings and everyone always says, oh, it's got strings on it, it's so pretty? Well, the sound here is a bit more reminiscent of almost like some sort of fading into the sunset romance novel. Maybe not even like the film adaptation, just the book itself. And I feel like we're turning pages throughout as Alex Turner, their frontman, delivers a really nice but understated vocal performance. And that's something that he does really, really well. I feel like it's a very sexy appeal in the way that it bleeds through the speaker. It's kind of an intimate track, especially here. And we got a lot of those moments on Tranquility Base, and that album continued growing on me over the years. I ended up picking up a vinyl copy just earlier this year, maybe late last year, and I've gotten a decent amount of spins out of it. It's a record that I thoroughly enjoy, and if they're building upon that once again, I see in some ways the criticism of why don't we like change the band name, or this doesn't really feel like them, what happened to the energy, it's been sucked out of the room, it's not for me. I completely understand that, but I also kind of feel like they're on their David Bowie shit right now, and if they're in that lane pushing that narrative a little bit, I can see why they would continue down this path. And I do think that the writing here is actually, not to say a saving grace, but also something else that I would throw on the positive side of the spectrum. There's a couple of lines in the second verse, actually kicking off that second verse, that really grabbed me. It starts with, "You're getting cynical and that won't do. I'd throw the rose tent back on the exploded view." I love how I can just see that in my head instantly. There's a lot about this track to love in the sense that it's visceral. Reach out, touch it, it's right there. And for the meaning of the track, I feel like it could definitely be argued that this is definitely about Alex and his girlfriend of 3 years breaking up at the end of 2018. It was during the touring cycle for Tranquility Base, Hotel, and Casino. And I think that's definitely a valid interpretation given how the song starts. Don't get emotional, that ain't like you, yesterday's still leaking through the roof. Like, this is a breakup that's on his mind. But the more I listened to this song, I felt like it was kind of like that last glimmer of hope, the sparks at the end of the tunnel, like the credits are playing when things are still good and you're getting the montage of that relationship. But I also feel like there's an extra layer of commentary where perhaps Alex Turner is talking to himself with lines like, "You're getting cynical and that won't do, don't get emotional, that ain't like you," perhaps talking himself up before a show or talking himself down. It's an interesting dichotomy in the way that he plays out between his bandmates, who you see Jamie Cook, instead of on lead guitar shredding, is doing something behind the keyboard that really keeps the song moving forward the entire time. I didn't know how I felt about it at first. In fact, I was pretty underwhelmed. It felt a little bit tepid in some ways, but it really resonates the more that you sit with it. It's very much a vibey, atmospheric time, and I think the music video kind of further dials in and cements the era that they're paying homage to. I definitely hear traces of loungier, jazzier stuff, which after Tranquility Base, who knew that they could get even more loungy than that? But here they are, coming back down to earth with their chutes deployed and landing as the first single, this track, There'd Better Be A Mirrorball. I would love to know what you guys are thinking of this lead single. Let me know down in the comments. Personally, I'm definitely on the positive side, so I'm going to say thumbs up. A first listen or two, I was feeling like maybe this was on the meh, but I really respect what they're going for. I just hope that there's a few more tracks that provide some extra energy, a little bit more of a guitar presence, but either way, I'm still very much interested to see what this album has coming.